Welcome into the Hoist the Colors podcast on this Sunday night. It is 9 o'clock, 9:01. A little late to throw out the first pitch. We're 1 minute late, but we are still doing it at our normal time, and there's plenty to talk about. The regular season is over. The postseason begins this week with conference tournaments across the country. I guess except for like two conferences on the West Coast that do their own things. We'll get into that. As always, we're live, YouTube, X, Facebook. Stephen Igo here, Jonathan Wagner, Scott Lowerbatcher alongside. We always open the podcast with our thoughts on the week that was, and it was a big week. East Carolina wins. They bounce back. They win the American Athletic Conference tournament. They win the American Athletic Conference regular season championship for a fifth year in a row. An incredible accomplishment, no matter what you think of the league. We'll go around the horn. Thoughts on the week that was. First, Jonathan Wagner owes the coaching staff at least a little bit of an apology. So we'll start there. Wags, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I was definitely frustrated last week, and I think for good reason. And there were a lot of criticisms. And again, I think some of them was for good reason too. But hey, they shut me up. And they shut me up this week. And I know it was against Rice, but it was still a strong 3-0 week. I think the offense hit well. The pitching staff did well for the most part. Defensively, you were good for the most part. And it kind of, like Cliff said after the game, it shut up a lot of the critics and the haters, and including myself, and kind of calmed the tone a little bit. And it was good. Now you head into the conference tournament on the high note, and you're the 1 seed, you're the favorite to win. And I think a lot more people are confident that you'll do it. So it was a good week all around. I think, again, there's still some things you can work on, but you did what you needed to do. You bounced back. You picked up a big sweep. You won the regular season, and that's one of your goals. So you can't complain from that.
Winning the regular season championship for a fifth year in a row definitely means and shows a lot, especially with all this team has been through the last month. Scott Lowerbatcher, your thoughts on the week that was?
Yeah, just a great bounce back week. I think that Wag's complaints from last week are still valid. I think we left a lot on the table last week, and winning a series and sweeping Rice, while great, doesn't really erase what we lost by not winning 2 out of 3 last weekend, which was what we were concerned about, right? Like, I think if we win 2 out of 3 last weekend, this sweep means a lot more. One, it would mean that we set the record for most wins in AAC play by a baseball team in the history of the league. Instead, we're at 19, one shy of our record of 20. And two, we would be very much in the conversation for a top 8. Instead, I think we're fighting around that 9 to 10, 11, 12 range. So I think I'm going to back Wags up. His complaints last week, I think, are still as valid as they were then. And I don't think anybody is a hater, so to speak. I think that having concerns and hating are two very different things.
Yeah, no. I mean, I thought Wags made great points, many that we agree with. I was more or less joking, but and I don't think the haters were. I don't think Cliff Godwin's calling you out specifically, Wags. I just thought
he's not listening to the show.
Who knows? Maybe he's tuning in from Clearwater right now. What's up, Coach? Either way, yeah, it was just one of those things where I was confident they would bounce back because that's what they do under this regime. It is disappointing what happened at Tulane. A new Tulane would lay an egg in their next game. They did lose to Charlotte. Credit them. They did win the series, but still, it's just, even if you just win one at Tulane, I feel like you're sitting in a much better spot right now. Definitely if you win the series, but that's what makes it so frustrating. Now you still have a lot to play for going to Clearwater, but less margin for error. We'll get into the postseason picture. We got a lot of questions about Zach Root and Wyatt Shingman. We'll get to those here shortly. But I thought, I was the one person to predict a clean week. But when they flipped it to a doubleheader Friday, I just didn't think ECU had enough in the tank pitching-wise to get it done. And I was mainly worried because I knew Rice had, like, that dude at the back end of their bullpen. I can't remember his name. And that simply if ECU got down at any point in one of those games, Rice was going to go to him and try to win the game, which they did. And I give ECU a ton of credit for finding a way to win that game because, Rice is not great from a position player standpoint, but they do have 2 to 3 pretty high-level arms that ECU was still able to get to. So credit the Pirates for finding a way to take care of business and not leaving it up to UTSA and FAU and sweeping that doubleheader. Definitely shows a lot of grit and toughness. So 5 championships in a row, guys. I mean, it's just like it's not as easy as it seems, especially when you're getting everybody's best shot, Scott. It's like I do feel, everybody's like never take this for granted. I do feel like a lot of people do take it for granted though, and it's not. I know this is a weak league, but it's still not that easy to go out and just win 5 championships in a row.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot around this baseball program where people see certain criticisms and assume that we're not happy with it. But if you're an ECU baseball fan, there's never been a better time to be one. Over these last 5 years, we've hosted regionals, we've gone to super regionals, we've hosted super regionals. When I was in school, we had a great baseball team, but we weren't winning the conference every year, and we certainly weren't dominating in the way that we have. And it's just, you know, being a fan, it's hard not to want more. But I always tell people that hosting that first round is still like a big deal, and it should be a big deal. You shouldn't take that for granted either, because it's not something that everybody gets to do. And there's a lot of programs that would look up and go, we've hosted 4 out of 5 years or 5 out of 6 years, and be really, really proud of that. And I think we should too.
All right, we'll go ahead and before we dive into all the postseason picture stuff, because we're going to get a lot of that, and dive into the root stuff, I'll ask each of you guys, did any one player or one aspect of any game stand out more than the others, just to kind of recap the final regular season series, because I don't want to gloss over that completely. So we'll start with Wags. Was there a theme, player, anything that really stood out to you this past weekend?
Yeah, to me, it's a couple of bullpen guys. And, last weekend, Danny Beal pitched all 3 games. He threw like 126 pitches. I'm really glad we didn't play against Campbell, because I don't think he would have been available, or at least he shouldn't have been available. But then Danny Beal came out in the last game, and he did exactly what he did again. 4 innings, 58 pitches, 6 strikeouts, and he led you to victory again. But he wasn't the only one. Chris Kaler was the guy before him, and Chris Kaler had a huge bounce-back week. And when Jake Hunter went down, to me, I was kind of like, Chris Kaler's the guy that can step up into that Jake Hunter type role. He can spot start for you if he needs to. He can come in the bullpen potentially late, but then he didn't really look great in the last couple of weeks. So I think him bouncing back going to the conference tournament was huge. And then, no, I'm not getting through this question without getting through my Pinecrest guy. Colby Wallace made his pitching debut finally, and I think he looked really, really good. And again, with all this considered, we're playing Rice. And so Rice isn't great, but the guys stepped up. They did well. And Colby Wallace, low 90s on the mound, touched 93. I think had good off speed. And he looked like he knew – he looked confident out there. And for a guy who's played this season but not pitched before, being able to come in the last series of the regular season and pitch like he did with that much confidence, I think is huge. I think they're not going to rush him into becoming, an everyday bullpen piece. He's not going to be one of the key guys back in the bullpen in the postseason, but he's a guy, if you get in a pinch, maybe you trust him a little more and you feel a little bit better about your chances. So overall, I think the bullpen stepped up this week, and there's more guys than who I mentioned too.
Before we do get to Scott, his takeaway, Wallace, I heard he was like 89 to 90 in scrimmages, and he got out there, and they have been toying with putting him out there. He was like 92, 93. It was pretty electric stuff, hard slider. So, I mean, maybe he's just one of those guys that turns it up a notch, which is why you want to give guys opportunities. You just never know how they're going to react, good or bad, to the lights. But he seems like a competitor that the best comes out. And I think ECU's got a fresh arm there heading to the postseason that could help out. Scott, what about you? Individuals or themes stood out?
Yeah, 2 individuals and McChrystal and JJC, I felt like really kind of returned to form after kind of a hiatus for the last couple of weeks. I saw a lot more line drives as a team too, so it just felt like our offense was starting to click again in a way that it hadn't really with any consistency over the last 2 weeks. Just guys getting on top of the ball, hitting line drives all over the field. And I feel like McChrystal probably got robbed of 2 or 3 hits just on balls that were hit hard just right at people. So having those 2 guys really as threats going into the postseason is going to be huge, especially in regional play. Those are guys that can get the ball out of the ballpark. If we do pitch off in that first game, you're going to need to score and score early to kind of take some pressure off the bullpen, or Norby or Root, whoever might be pitching in that game. So really good to see that again. And yeah, as far as Colby Wallace goes, that's another guy that we were talking about that would have liked to seen him more throughout the year, especially in some of these games where we were up by 6 or 7 runs late, and maybe Bill was out there or some of the other like high end bullpen arms. So I think getting to see him this week was great, and hopefully we get to see him even more going forward.
Johnny Robertson says Jacob Jenkins Coward, JC, when hitting in the second and third spots, has hit a home run in every 37 at bats. When batting in the fourth or fifth spots, he has hit a home run in every 10.4 at bats and has had an RBI every 2.2 at bats. JC, by the way, breaking the all-time American Athletic Conference RBI record held by Josh Moylan from last year. So congrats to JC. He picked up 11 in the 3-game span this past week. 4 home runs in a row, 4 games with a home run, I should say, in a row, all to opposite field. So, and a few of those like just fly balls off the bat, which kind of gives you a sense of his power.
Do you give it the Roger Maris asterisk because we played 3 extra games?
That is a fair point. I didn't think about that. So RBIs per game record still belongs to Josh Moylan.
That's true.
So yeah, we're about to asterisk that one. So yeah, all right. Let's get into some of these comments, and again, continue to drop those, and we will address them over the course of the show. All right, JPN 1212 says rough week for ECU and the RPI. And I mean, this is why the metric I think is flawed, and a lot of this I will say had to do with teams around ECU winning and moving up. But we kind of knew the math would be working against ECU because even by winning the Rice games, it was like -7 or 8 points for each win when I was looking at it. So you lost 21 points or in that ballpark for sweeping a series. And ECU goes from 12 to 16 despite not losing a game as NC State jumps up. You had teams like Oregon State, Virginia hold firm. UC Santa Barbara randomly took an 8-spot jump. So I don't know, Wags, what do you make of the RPI? And again, we just, history tells us the committee's going to use it as a crutch. And if so, then that could hurt ECU's hosting seed if they end up hosting.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you said, RPI is very flawed. I don't remember which series it was. It may have been a USF series, but there was a game where if ECU won the last game of that series, then ECU loses however many RPI points, and North Carolina gains 2 RPI points from ECU winning that game. So it's kind of like, well, what the hell? And, it's flawed from that standpoint. And, I mean, you look at the top, and there's a common theme. It's SEC and ACC teams. And you look into SEC, and there's teams like Alabama, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, all 13-17, LSU 13-17 in the SEC. That's not a good conference record. But all those teams are top 20, 30 in RPI. And you wonder, are all those teams going to be able to make it due to their conference record? And, for the hosting picture specifically, again, ECU won their games and they're down to 16. It is what it is. But, it does create the question, all those other teams, you look at a team like Mississippi State, another team that's probably on the hosting bubble, NC State, Wake Forest. All those teams have better competition in their conference tournaments. Their RPI could climb even higher. ECU, even winning a conference tournament, their RPI is probably not going to go that much higher than it is. So it's frustrating for sure. It's very flawed. I wish there was an answer around it. And I wish I knew how much the committee valued it this year because it seems like it changes year to year. Some years the committee is straight 1 through 64, those teams are pretty much in a tournament. And as much as they can stick to that, they will. Other years, it seems to differ a little bit. So I don't know what to expect this year, but it is frustrating. And it's even more frustrating to me that it does kind of fluctuate year to year. And it is what it is at this point, but it's very frustrating. That's just the word I keep coming back to.
You said fluctuate, but it almost sounded like you said FUA, which I think is a good good word. Trey Daly, shout out Trey for sending a ton of dirt bags the Pirates' way. He says South Carolina has lost 6 straight games and their RPI went up. Just kind of showing the power of the SEC. Basically, by playing these teams, you're going to at least hold firm or move up. Florida, which is around 500, is low mid-20s in the RPI, according to Adam. By the way, I do want to point out we did incorrectly. So C-Town Pirate made a good point. He said RBIs per season, not conference games only. So I guess either way, he's the fair record holder.
Less games then.
Yeah. So
way more rainouts this year.
Yeah. What did we lose? 3 games ECU did? So
3 or 4? He lost Campbell 2 with ECU.
40 and 13, so 3.
3, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Back to that discussion, RPI. A lot of questions about the hosting picture, so we'll go ahead and transition into that. Scott, Chris Allen says, "Are we going to host?" I'm freaking out over here. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still in really good position to host. We did win the league. We won it by 2 games. RPI is still very much in play. One thing you can always go do is look at the teams in front of us in RPI and just kind of pick out who you might have us jump over. I think of UCSB, Indiana State. I think those are teams that don't really have the cachet or resume to be above us right now. I do think we need to do well in Clearwater. I don't think going down there and losing 2 games is going to do us any favors, and I think it could very much take us off of that bubble. But if we go 4-0, win the league, go 44-13 going into the selection committee's decision, I think we are very much in play to host and probably host more and along like the closer to 10 range than to 16. So I think we're in good shape right now, but that can all change very quickly.
I think if ECU makes the championship game, they're for sure hosting. I think if they lose 2 games, just the damage of losing 2 games for the RPI, like I think the resume will still be host worthy, but then I worry about, are they just going to say, well, ECU's RPI fell to 21-22. I think that's around where it was last year when ECU didn't host. So like I worry about, again, that giving the committee a crutch to fall on, hey, let's go with another West Coast team above ECU in the 20. So I think if you make it to Sunday, by that point, they kind of know who the hosts are going to be anyways. So I think the Pirates would be good then. But we'll see. I mean, if you win the championship, I think you're a no-doubt host. I think if you make it, you're a no-doubt host. But you never know with the committee. I think it really helps John Gilbert is there. CBA 0125 says, my hope is John Gilbert being on the committee will help us out more this year. And I think it will. Look, I think just like it'll help Coastal Carolina with their AD being the head of the committee chair. They can say that it's not a factor, but it is, I promise you. So I think it definitely helps. And the better ECU can do for John Gilbert to have a presence there. He doesn't even have to say anything, but just being in the room is going to help ECU. So I think that's critical for the Pirates hosting chances, but they got to go out and take care of business. You really just got to, guys, I mean, you can't lose the first game. I mean, that was such a killer last year because then you're just working all week just to get back into it. So we'll get more into the conference tournament later, but we'll stay on the hosting discussion. Who's kind of on that bubble right now along with the Pirates? We'll start with Wags, and feel free to chime in, Scott, as well. As you kind of look down the list, like who is a lock at this point, and then who are maybe some of the questionable teams or more in but still not a lock?
Yeah, for me, I think in my opinion, I think there's 7 teams that are a lock for a top 8 right now. I think that's Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, A&M, Arkansas, Clemson, and Georgia. Those 7 teams, I'd be surprised if any of them were not a top 8 when it's all said and done. And then after that, I think it's for that final 8 seed, Oregon State, I still think could get in there. Florida State could. I don't think Florida State should, but I think Florida State could. And Oklahoma, they completely run through the Big 12 this year, 23-7. So their RPI might not quite be top 8, but they're close enough. And I think Oklahoma could sneak into that mix. Virginia has quietly put together a solid resume, better than I thought it was when I looked at it earlier today. So Virginia could slide up in there. And then I think you have Indiana State safe as a host. Right now, I think UC Santa Barbara is safe as a host, but UC Santa Barbara doesn't have a conference tournament. UC Santa Barbara has another weekend series, and I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but the RPI is not very kind to them.
UC Riverside, 271.
271. So if Santa Barbara loses one of those games, that could take them from 10 in RPI to, say, 20, and maybe further depending on how they do. So, and right now, I think NC State's safe as a host, which is kind of crazy, considering like 2 weeks ago. But State has a good resume too. And I think I said this, but I do think ECU is safe as a host. I think if ECU gets to the conference tournament, they are going to host. It gets to the conference tournament championship, sorry. And then I think there's Oklahoma State I would probably have in right now as my final host. But then after that, it's Mississippi State is a real contender. Wake Forest could if they go on a run in the ACC tournament. Dallas Baptist could sneak back into it, and Duke maybe if they go on a run in the ACC tournament, but I still think they're a little far off. So to me, I think there's about 19 teams for 16 spots, but really, as of right now, I think about 15 of those 16 hosts are pretty set in stone, barring something unforeseen over the next week.
What do you think, Scott? And then ECU Arg on Twitter wants to know. He says, I think a top 8 is out of the reach even if we sweep the tourney. Do you agree with that, or is there a path?
I think a lot of it depends on how much the committee values conference championships and conference tournaments. In years past, being a conference champion has provided an extra tally mark to the really good teams. So it could be a factor, and you never know what happens this weekend. I would throw Arizona in that mix too. They did win the Pac-12. I think they could definitely be in a top 16. And then if Louisiana Tech wins the Conference USA tournament, I think they're in as a host, probably as the 16th seed too. So it really just depends. So you do have Gilbert on the committee. You have Coastal Carolina's AD heading the committee. And all they've probably heard all year long is how RPI is what they go off of. They always go off of RPI. They always go off of RPI. And just the human condition of being, counter to what everybody's telling you are, I could very much see them just going, you know what, we're not doing that this year. We're going to take a look at these teams and rank them based off of accomplishments over what they've done. So then you maybe have a team like NC State that's had, I think, 5 really, really good series wins. Maybe they jump up in the top 8. You have an ECU who I think UNC's a top 8. If NC State's a top 8 or close to it, ECU went 4-1 against those teams. So if you're saying these are 2 of the 8 best teams, then how is ECU not at least in the conversation for that? Despite what the rest of the season was, it's really a bad weekend at UTSA and a horrible weekend at Tulane. But other than that, I think our resume is very, very good. A lot of one-run losses. So maybe that's something that the committee can use as an angle of, hey, this is a team that they won 44 games. They could have easily won 47, 48 if the ball bounces a different way. And if they win that many, they're easily a top 8. So there are 9 seed paired up with the 8 seed NC State, which would be really, really fun or really, really miserable, depending on how it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, the fascinating stuff about all this, guys, is, you can look at any number, data point, in most cases with a lot of these teams and make an argument for or against. And so it really comes down to, you mentioned the human element. What is convenient for the committee to use to move a certain team above another team? Because you can make arguments more times than not. We've even seen head-to-head overlooked at times in the past, or it's used as the main argument for, hey, we have this team above this team because of head-to-head. So there's just, there's so many numbers. Apparently they are going to use KPI along with RPI this year because RPI is such a critical, but KPI even favors the power teams more than RPI does. So I don't know if that's going to help ECU. So it's just one of those things we just don't know. And again, I think having John Gilbert there is going to help. There's no doubt about it. It's and I think what Gilbert and the Coastal AD just recently worked out a football home and home, so maybe that helps out a little bit too. I mean, you never know. You got to try every angle you can get.
Take it away.
Yeah. We'll redact the home and home. Maybe it's written into the home and home contract that either the Pirates or Coastal have to be a top 8 seed during the year for ECU to.
Is Coastal still in play for the tournament? Like, I feel like they've.
I think they're in now because they've won. They swept Marshall. Yeah, so they
RPI 16 and 14 in the Sun Belt, 33 and 21 overall.
They'll be in.
3 non-conference strength of schedule though.
Yeah, they'll be in because what they need to do is they just need to beat Marshall and Georgia State. They went 5-1 against them. So, and then the other factor is too, how much does the committee, if anything, factor in ECU not having Shinkman at root? Like it having in the past, haven't they used that as an argument for or against teams, Wags? I mean, I think I remember that. How about y'all?
I definitely remember working against teams.
Yeah.
I can't remember specific examples at this point because I'm so locked in on this year. I can barely remember what happened in our games on Saturday. But yeah, I definitely feel like that's played a role in the past, and it should this year. Um, you know, again, Wyatt Lunchel-Champion is maybe the best reliever in the country this year, and he hasn't been available for a while. Zach Root's been a good number 2 for most of the season, and same thing for him. He hasn't been here. Jake Hunter's out, so it should matter. Availability should matter, and we know, like, you look at the college football playoff and all that stuff, and not to start that whole conversation, but it mattered for them this year. So I don't know. I think that kind of stuff, it should matter, and you look at that stuff and you see that this isn't the same ECU team without those guys, but if those guys come back, it's interesting. So I don't know. It should matter, but I don't know if it will.
Sam Anderson says ECU is 24 in KPI. Coastal is 16. Johnny Robertson says KPI is also flawed. They consider winning margin but do not reward close losses. Well, then ECU is screwed in the KPI because the Pirates have the best run differential in college baseball. All right, Golf Yoda says if ECU wins the conference tournament going 4-0, they will get a 12 or 13 seed to match up with the UNC or Clemson regional and the Supers. We'll see. I mean, I think ECU, talking to people, I think if ECU goes 4-0 and sweeps the conference tournament, they'll be a lot higher than people think. Again, that's just talking to ECU people. We'll see how it plays out, but I think ECU is a little more respected even after the Tulane series and maybe what the guys at D1 Baseball are saying. But once the committee gets in the room, we never know how it's going to play out. And Chuck mentions not only is it hosting, but if we're number 16, we're screwed. I'll say this, guys. There's 3 teams I don't want to see in a super regional. Tennessee, A&M, and Arkansas. I think anybody else I'm fine with. I'm not scared of Kentucky. I know they're really good, but they don't scare me. What about y'all? Are there any teams y'all definitely don't want to see in a super?
No, those 3 teams, pretty much. Yeah. Anybody? If I'm picking my crop of the teams, yeah, give me anybody but those 3. And again, there are other tiers of matchups after that, but really, to me, anything outside of those 3 is ideal because those 2 or 3 teams, I don't think you're winning.
I would prefer not to see Georgia, but I wouldn't necessarily be terrified of the series. I just think they match up really well against us, especially if somehow that was in Greenville. That would be a light show going on with balls being hit out of the park.
Yeah, Georgia thing is interesting because I've heard that there's some talk out there in the SEC that thinks there's some shenanigans going on with their success. But either way, would not be fun to play them on their home field, I don't think. Chuck says, let's say ECU is a 13 seed. They host and win their region. They go up against number 4. However, number 4 loses the region. Does the team that beat number 4 go to Greenville or ECU go away? ECU would host in that scenario, Chuck. Where it becomes tricky is, let's say somehow ECU is a 2 seed and the 2 seed in the other regional along with ECU won, then you have a situation where it kind of goes back to the NCAA to decide it. So, all right. Richard Osbrook says, I understood we need to watch Wake and Florida State this past weekend for a chance to sneak into a top 8 opportunity. Wake crashed 0-3 and burned. Florida State went 2-2. Scott, I know you're following this stuff. I guess the problem is outside of those 2 teams, everybody else really dominated or took care of business, right?
Yeah, you look at Oregon State going to Arizona and winning 2 out of 3. They needed to win all 3 to win the league, so they didn't do that. But if they win the Pac-12 tournament, I think they're in as a top 8. I think it's just too easy for the committee to give a West Coast team a top 8, and they're going to do it if they can. And then for the Wake thing is actually kind of funny because it's great that they lost for us, but now NC State is very much in play for a top 8 because they swept Wake. So really, Wake winning that final game would have been better overall. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And Florida State did go 2-2. They lost to Stetson, but won 2 out of 3 versus Georgia Tech. Had they lost one more of those games, I think they would have really taken a hit just in the polls. And the polls do still matter. The committee does look at the top 25 polls and where everybody is. So I think that's a factor because I think Florida State will be still a spot ahead of us going into this into conference championship weekend. And it's really hard to say how the polls adjust based off of like an ACC tournament. Well, let's say Florida State doesn't advance out of their pod. How do you move them up or down in the poll? Maybe you don't move them at all if they go 1-1. So it'll be interesting to see there too. So I mean, top 8 is not completely out of the play. I don't want people to think that, but I think the road to get there is pretty narrow.
Yeah, I think ECU's got to sweep and then get a lot of help for it to even be, a possibility. Just because like NC State, Florida State, Oregon State, and somebody else can all, I think, play their way into a top 8 depending on what happens in the postseason.
Yeah, or even Mississippi State wins the SEC tournament, and they're a top 8. So, I mean,
the problem is these teams have a chance to boost their resume so much and really don't lose anything at this point by going, 0-2 in a tournament. Whereas ECU's got to win just to kind of keep pace. So, here's what it is. All right. Golf Yoda says, I feel like State has to get to the championship game of the ACC tournament to get the top 8. I mean, they're 32-19. That's not top 8 material. Yeah, I mean, their weekends are top 8 material. They have the best weekend resume in the country, but they're 12-14 quad 1. He had 32 overall wins. They just have a weird resume, but you can't deny the weekend success against the top end teams they've played. So, they're one of those teams you could make a case for, or if you really wanted to, you could make a case against them. So, yeah, I don't know anything else, guys, to add on this whole regional host top 8 mix before we move on. Are we good?
I think we're good. Just keep winning and hope for the best.
That's basically it. ECU just needs to win. All right. Adam McMahon said, what was the bat issue on Friday? What were they checking for? So I don't know the specifics, but who was it that got called out for an illegal bat this weekend? Somebody. Cincinnati?
Cincinnati had a dude tossed. He had a game-tying double in like the second inning. No, he didn't get tossed. They called him out, and the announcers weren't sure what it was for. And it was hard to tell if they were checking the sticker or if it's like he had pine tar like too far up the bat, which I don't think they still do anything like that. But it was Oklahoma, Cincinnati, and then it was weird that Rice's coach hit us with that like 2 hours later.
That and the box reset, the home. What did he ask for on the opener? The
lines to be redrawn. Yeah.
Just weird. It was like Wayne Graham Part 2. It's just not as successful as Wayne Graham. So, all right. Okay, so people are asking about pitching. All right, let's get into this discussion about Zach Root and these damn rumors. I'm going to address it once, and we're moving on. I got at least 20 texts about Zach Root holding out for NIL money. It's all bullshit, all right? People need to stop with this rumor. He's been throwing throughout the process. He's been trying to go. There's a difference between holding out intentionally for money or NIL reasons and wanting to transfer and taking it careful, easy with a $1 million arm. You're not going to rush back before you have to throw in the case of Zach Root, and that's what they've been doing with Shinkman and Root. There's no deal where he's holding out for more money, demanding $100,000 a start. Like, all this shit needs to stop. And whoever started it, I don't know why you started it. I'm not saying the offseason will get here and Zach Root won't want some NIL money because that's college baseball, but he's not like threatening the coaches that he needs to be paid or he's not going to start. So I don't know where that narrative started, but it needs to stop because it's BS. So yeah, I just want to address that. And as far as this week, so my understanding, all my days are screwed up. I think pregame Saturday, I'd have to go back and double check. One of the pregames this week, they did throw a bullpen, or at least worked off a mound. Root and Shinkman did. And they are, I would say, on track still to pitch in the postseason, according to my sources. The hope is to have them throw at some point, probably once a piece in the conference tournament this week, just to get them back into a game environment. You don't want to roll out into a regional at this point without having them thrown at all. They have been throwing off a mound pretty regularly throughout this time, so it's not like they've been shut down completely. And so I would say they're on the cusp, and hopefully we see them this week, guys. But that's the only information I can add at this time, other than the rumors are BS. I'm tired of getting messages about them. And I'll just say, yeah, I mean, ECU's got to have Root and Shinkman back for the postseason to have a chance to get to Omaha. I think we all agree on that. But Wags, how important is it that these guys at least make an appearance this week just to get back into a game?
Yeah, it's very important, and to me, both guys are very important. But yeah, you got to pick your spots this week, and I do think it is pivotal for both of them to at least get in the game once. And again, for Shinkman, that probably looks like on Tuesday or Thursday, you come out and you throw an inning in a low stress situation, low leverage, not a high leverage, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, 1-run lead type of situation. Just low stress. Just go out there and get a feel for the mound again and pitch. Don't worry about anything else. Just pitch. And Root, he's not going to start and go give you 5 innings. That's just not going to happen right now. He needs to, even if he does start, he serves as an opener, and that's fine. Maybe that's an opener for a Danny Beal, who's been a guy who gives you distance lately anyways. And Root comes out, gives you an inning, maybe 2, and that's fine. But yeah, this week I think you got to pick your spots, but you got to give them a little bit of work, assuming they're able to, because I agree. If you don't have both of them, especially to me, Weiland or Shinkman, if you don't have him, I don't think you win a regional. And I don't think you win a super regional, depending on how the matchups play out. So, yeah, if you want to get to Omaha, you need both of those guys. But if you want to get to a super regional, because that's where we start, you have to get through a regional format where you got to win games on back-to-back-to-back days. And that's not easy. And with the state of this pitching staff, again, this weekend was a step in the right direction pitching-wise. But those guys take it to a whole nother level. And even if they're not at their best, just having them able to give you something gives us a boost. And right now, we'll take all the boost we can get.
Yeah, I would say I'm still concerned about their effectiveness for when the actual regional comes because they haven't thrown so long. I do think the plan all along has been to get them back, especially Root this week, and then hopefully build them up. But you just kind of don't know what you're going to get when you throw a guy out there in live action after so long of an outing, or so long of not having an outing. But I don't know, Scott. I guess that's my concern at this point. Their effectiveness, maybe not necessarily. Are they going to be available? At least according to what I'm hearing. So, because I do think you need both of them to get through a regional at this point.
Yeah, there's been some horrible mix-up. That was actually Wags and I requesting money to keep coming on the show. So I don't know how this got turned into Root, but that's on us, I guess. But no, yeah, I don't like our chances in the regional. Honestly, I don't like our chances in Clearwater if they're not both available. I think we need them to win anytime that we have to play more than 4 games in a week. So, the best ability is availability, and I think holding them out and making sure they can and are healthy enough to participate in Florida and then hopefully back in Greenville for that regional weekend it makes the most sense. If you look at the teams we've played, especially on paper, these are teams we should have beaten without them available. Once we get to the regional, that's not going to be the case. That first game, and we could be playing a team like Army, who's very capable, or Samford, somebody like that, who's going to be very capable, certainly capable of beating us. You think about the Quinnipiac game. That team was not very heralded, but a good baseball team. So we definitely will need them back by then, and we need them to be able to give us, if you're looking at Root, probably 5 innings, and if you're looking at Shinkman, maybe 2 appearances. And if they can't do that, then I'm hesitant to say that we make it out of a regional, even if it's at home. And I know that it's really tough to play at our place, but it's a lot easier to play against us when we're not at our best.
Yeah, I look at Root and Shingman, and basically you're missing a whole game worth of innings at least when they're 100%. So it's like if you don't have those guys, that's 9 innings you got to account for with somebody else. I mean, then that's a pretty big drop off from not having your best closer and your Saturday starter, who could be first, second round pick next year. So again, but they've been awful careful with them for this reason to have them back by this week, and now it's kind of now or never time. Like if they're not, to me, if they don't throw in the conference tournament, I would say I would go from concerned to doubtful that they make an actual impact, at least on regional weekend. That's enough to to really win the regional because they'd only be able to throw a couple innings, more so than go win you an entire game. But we'll see. There's just a lot to kind of wait out and play. I do think they want to get them both in a game this week if all goes well. We will talk to Cliff Godwin 9 a.m. tomorrow, and then we'll have him on the show at 12 noon. So I'll ask. We'll see if we can get an update. All right. Golf Yoda says, I think these injuries could definitely open the door for Colby Wallace to be a dude. That kid is special. Yeah, we discussed him earlier. I think he's going to – I tell you what, you can't watch what he did the other night, guys, and not pitch him again pretty soon. All right, so game one, we got a question from a couple people of the conference tournament. Again, if you're unfamiliar, ECU is paired with Rice in the 1-8 game, and then Wichita is the 4, UAB the 5. On the other side, you had UTSA, FAU, Tulane, and who's the other team I'm missing? Charlotte. So ECU went 9-0 against teams on its side of the region, and I think 5-7 against teams on the other side. So Pirates got a pretty good draw, I would say, and a lot of questions, guys, about who to throw against Rice. I think it's got to be Ethan Norby, or if you want to bring him out of the bullpen, maybe start an opener and then go Norby. But what do y'all think on Tuesday at this point? We'll start with Wags.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has to be Ethan Norby. And to me, it's similar as the opening game of a regional. There's that whole conversation, do you throw your guy game one or do you save him for game two? And obviously, Trey Savage is not going to pitch on Tuesday. He shouldn't. That would throw off his rest. It's not going to happen. But to me, you have to win the first game of the conference tournament if you plan on winning it. And so you can't just go, try and experiment and throw someone who hasn't really done something. It's going to end up being a bullpen day, realistically. I don't think Norby, if he starts, is going to go give you 5-6 innings. It's probably going to be, 3, hope for 4. And that's fine. And then you piece it together after that. But with the extra days of rest, you should have more guys available. So I think it's Norby, but you have to win the game. So if Norby comes out and doesn't have it after an inning, then it's the next guy. And I think it's true bullpen day, and you're going to your best guy who's available at the time. And to me, that's Ethan Norby. And I think it could be, maybe a little bit of a tryout for him. And like I just said, in a regional, who starts that first game? Right now, I don't know who that is for ECU. And Trey Savage is going to start one of the games, but ideally you save him for the second game. And who's that first guy who steps up, assuming Zach Rue isn't available? And to me, Ethan Norby feels like the guy it should be. And I think this is a big opportunity for him to show that, maybe he deserves that chance.
What do you think, Scott, on pitching plans for Tuesday?
Yeah, I think that's why you saw Norby close out the first game. Is maximize his availability. He's had since Thursday off, so get him out there, let him go 4 or 5 innings. Hopefully of a good outing, and then you see where the chips fall. Right, if we're up 8-0, then maybe you go kind of Eric Ritchie, Jaden Winter to close out the game. If it's 3-2 and Shinkman's available, then I think that's an opportunity to get him in. And then, in theory, if you win the game, have a break before his next appearance. So you're not there to win one game against Rice. You're there to win the whole tournament. I think using Norby in that first game gives you the best chance. And then obviously, like Wag said, Trey goes the second game. If you win both of those games, then you only need to win one more to make it to the final. And then you can you're playing a team that's played an extra game at that point. But in all honesty, if we lose that first game, then I don't want to win the conference tournament because I don't want us playing 6 games before a regional again. I think in what was that 2019 that we did that? That it's really just kind of took. Maybe it was 2018. It kind of just we were worn out going into that regional. And we didn't look very good. So, best case scenario is win 4 games and not lose one. So I think Norby gives us the best chance of doing that.
I really think I think if ECU doesn't slip up in that first game, they're going to win the tournament. Because to me, you win the first game, you have Trey for the Thursday game. I think you're good. Look, UAB or Wichita State, do we really think they can beat you, Savage? It's baseball. Anything can happen, but I'm going to say no. And then the other team's got to beat you twice out of the loser's bracket, which even with the pitching situation being as bad as it is for ECU, it's worse with other teams. So Pirates just got to find a way. And it's tough to beat a bad team 4 times in a row. I mean, it's not easy. The one thing I do like, guys, about the Rice game is they just threw their closer. What did he throw? 80 pitches Friday.
So start, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I would find it hard that he would at least. I mean, if he's available, maybe an inning Tuesday. Now the real question is their Thursday guy through a complete game. He's their best starter. Do they start him? So I think ECU's in a pretty good spot going into that game against their best arms being maybe down. So we'll see how that plays out. Speaking of that, Golf Yoda says, having just played a 3-game set against Rice to close the season, I must admit they were the last team I wanted to match up against. You give any team that many chances, they're going to win one of them. I mean, I do agree, but I just think there's got to be such a reset between the end of Friday and then getting to Clearwater on Tuesday. I still think Rice is probably the least talented position player group in the field. And if ECU plays well, they'll win, Wags. But I don't know. What do you think of this matchup overall?
Yeah, I agree. Like you just said, I think a big part of it is Rice's 2 best pitchers, their closer and their Friday night starter, are probably not going to be able to pitch. So that being said, pretty much no matter who ECU throws, I'm assuming it's Norby, but I just think the disparity in talent overweighs for me the hard to beat a team 4 times, which it is. But again, it's baseball. Like you said, anything can happen. But I just don't expect that to happen. And, yeah, I think winning that game is pivotal. And I think if you win that game, you're going to win the conference tournament. If you lose that game, you're not going to win it. And to me, I mean, I'll save what I think is going to happen for our prediction portion of the podcast. But I do think this team is still a little bit fired up, after the Tulane series, losing that and, having some of the doubters. And I do think this team is, fired up to prove people wrong and fired up to bring a regional back home. And I think they understand that winning this week is important. So I think the team's going to be fired up. And I think they're going to come out strong against Rice.
Parker Smith threw 109 pitches on Thursday. So what is he going to get? 3 days rest, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I guess he would get 4. So maybe you could throw him, but I doubt he's going super deep. He's Rice's best pitcher, projected draft pick. And then you have their closer, looking it up now, Davian Hickson, who threw, I mean, it was upwards of 80. His page taking forever to load. Somebody said he was
84.
84. There you go. Thank you for saving me time. Yeah, I mean, he was 95 on pitch 80. So I want no part of seeing that dude again. That he's going to be a pro, Florida State transfer. So yeah, I think ECU has just got to show up for that first game. And I think we'll know by the 3rd inning. It feels like the conference tournament, ECU is either locked in or just out of it. And I feel like this year they've got a lot to play for, so it should be the former, but you never know. I mean, I think the year ECU was a regional host under Gavin, Gavin, I remember him starting the second game. What was it, Memphis that run-ruled ECU in the first game? It was the lowest seed, so you never know in that time of year.
All right. Run-ruled them 2 days later.
Yeah, it was just crazy. But yeah. Anyways, Colby Wallace, can he start or is he middle relief? How come he didn't pitch earlier this season? Chuck wants to know. I don't think he, at this point, profiles as a starter. Looks like fastball. I mean, he could be an opener, but I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to be going through the order 2 or 3 times, fastball slider combination. As for why he didn't throw early in the season, I mean, I don't know. The position player thing, they didn't feel comfortable throwing him out there, but sometimes you just got to let it rip. We kind of discussed that earlier, but we saw him now.
Everyday third baseman for 2 or 3 weeks. Probably takes him away from the opportunity. I think it's an interesting question if Root and Shinkman start the year hurt and aren't available to begin the season. Does Colby Wallace start the year working with the bullpen arms instead of the infield arms?
Will Stafford says, what happened with Parker Thomas? He left the team, kicked off the team. I don't know what happened, but he's now in the transfer portal.
He announced today, I think, on Twitter that he was in the portal and thanked ECU for his time here and all that good stuff. So good luck to him.
We'll always have William and Mary. Hey, he got the out, man.
He did.
Big time.
The Pirates would be like number 18 in the RPI without that win right now, probably. So big win. Parker Thomas could be the reason ECU hosts a regional. All right. Let's making sure I don't miss any comments here before we move forward. Let's see. A lot of Shinkman and Root. Almost called him Rinkman. Maybe I should just go Rinkman as like the new Root and Shinkman.
I like it.
Somebody said, I assume Bristol Carter got benched for Nowak due to defensive issues on Friday. I don't know. If he was benched, so he was walking to the plate to hit in that second inning when Cliff called him back. So, like, if he was straight up benched, he would have been benched after the inning. So, I mean, it could have played a role, but I think it was more of a matchup thing. Plus I know Bristol Carter has not been feeling well, per my sources. So, maybe all that played a role. Either way.
Right before that at bat, or maybe at the beginning of that.
I know that they had a righty in for sure. Either way, guys, the left field defense between Nowak and Bristol has got to – can't be having these issues in the postseason.
Are they too fast? Do they keep running past the ball and where it's supposed to be?
Yeah. It's a valid concern. I mean, I still think your best defensive lineup is Cunningham at left, Clonch at first, but we just don't see that a lot. So, I don't know. All right, there was another question here. Yeah. So what was up with me on TV? Did y'all see this?
I did.
Yeah.
I did the DiCaprio meme.
I was just
You look thrilled.
I mean, first off,
it looked like that game was going to go 5 hours.
It was that second inning, right, where it was like maybe right after that, where I went down to take pictures of was it Di Lorenzo who was throwing then?
Yes.
I was like,
yeah, it was.
Yeah. I was like, I don't have any pictures of D'Lo, so I'm going to get on there and get some of him. Next thing I know, like the bottom half of the inning lasts like 14 hours, which I'm not complaining about. But I was like, goodness gracious, man. So, yeah, I was out of it. But, hey, it worked, I guess. I got sent like 10 messages. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So, yeah, I don't know. Interesting stuff there for the ESPN Plus broadcast, but thanks for the shout out. I did. So what did they say anything? I didn't listen to it.
Wallace called you out by name. And he was like, there's Igo getting some photos.
Mike Mullis, he used to give me batting lessons back when I was playing travel ball and growing up playing a little league. So shout out Winterville Rec Baseball, better than Greenville Little League. Fight me. All right. Any other things here? I think we're good. Somebody said they were going to toss peanuts at me. Thanks for not doing that. Golf Yoda just says Clonch launch. I was saddened, guys, that we didn't get more Cam Clonch at bats for Senior Day weekend.
Or
am I alone there?
Senior year or junior year.
Yeah.
I've been wanting more Cam Clonch for like 4 years. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's tough, man. It's frustrating, but I still feel like he's going to have a big hit this postseason.
I agree.
Whether it's conference tournament, whether it's regional, super regional, whatever, Cam Clonch is going to hit one at a big time. All right, let's somebody says, can Clonch come back with a COVID year? Nah, he's out of eligibility. He started after the COVID year.
I think this is the last of the COVID year guys.
Yeah.
Outside of, the 6th year, 7th year, had multiple injury stuff, but just all around the country. So we're back to normal 5 to play 4.
Yeah, because Wilcoxon, I think he may have been a traditional redshirt, but he came in the COVID year. I don't think he played at all. But either way, those guys should be done. All right, bold predictions last week. I don't think any of us hit, correct?
I think I had Bristol Carter to hit for like the week-long cycle, and then he got like 4 at bats. So, no.
I'm trying to remember what I had.
What did you have, Alex? I had 1 error or less, which was quickly put to bed. ECU did not play good defense. The defense on the left side still worries me heading into the postseason. I'm talking infield,
to the jungle.
Yes.
Charles Boulevard is the first thing stopping a ball.
It concerns me because you're going to have a 3-2 game in that regional Saturday night game. You're going to have to make those plays.
There was a home run ball that somebody ran away from in the jungle. So, I mean, it extends all the way out past the grass.
I'm going to search our text messages to see if I've talked about my bold prediction.
If somebody remembers Wags' bold prediction, it clearly wasn't a hit. Otherwise, he would have let us know. Adam McMunn says, mine hit 0 home runs in the Campbell game. Congrats, Adam. I'm proud of you, man. Great job. Kurt Cohn says, Igo, will you drink beer in the parking lot with someone before a regional game if ECU hosts, if someone asks you to? Yes. It depends on how long it is. Like, I can't be doing it like an hour out. I need like some time to like sip it slowly so I can't get any buzz at all because I do have to work and I don't want to have any alcohol in my breath going into the press box. It's just not a good look.
Tell that to Bob Euchre.
I'll have one beer and enjoy my time. Let me know. Give me a mint as well.
I've located my bold prediction.
All right, what was it?
And I'm realizing quickly why I forgot it. It's because I predicted Nathan Chrisman to get a hit.
Oh, gosh. He didn't even get an appearance, did he?
No, not at all.
Did he pinch run, maybe?
I don't think he did.
Run, I think. Maybe
I don't think he did.
Let me check the stats.
I'm looking through the old scorebook I got here. Nope. No appearances.
Nathan Chrisman did not make an appearance. You are correct.
It's not a bold prediction with that being bold.
I think that's a no bet. I think that's if they don't get in, that doesn't count against you. Gotta have at least official at that.
You get your money back.
Yeah. I like it.
Kurt Cohn, what's my beer of choice? I'm a big fan of Yingling. Just smooth traditional beer. What about you guys? If you are going beer pregame, what do you like?
I'm not a drinker.
Wags
I guess I partied a little too hard in my senior year. I haven't drank in a couple of years. So.
Wags is gonna go
root
beer.
Zach.
Yep. On the day that Zach Root starts in the regional.
Pounding barks out in the jungle. I like a good Miller Lite. It has no GHT.
There you go. Can't go wrong with a Miller Lite. All right, Leighton says still doing the conference tournament stream. So yes. So if y'all want to come to this, y'all are more than welcome, Wags and Scott. But Tuesday at 12 noon, we're gonna have our radio show Hoist the Colors, and then after that, 47 minutes after the 9 a.m. game, such an arbitrary number, the ECU baseball team will play Rice. We will have our radio show that will carry into 94.3 game pregame coverage. Scott Rogers. Then we'll have our live watch along. I know Kason Rameli is in. Joe Sampson is in. We're going to give away a free month subscription every inning during the game. So make sure you're tuned in. And we're going to have a hot dog eating challenge. Are either of you guys willing to drive to town for this?
I will be working, unfortunately, so I will be unable. I'll be watching, though. Don't worry.
All right. I hold you to that.
I think I have to go into the office on Tuesday. And also, I don't know if I can leave on Tuesday and then again this weekend. So
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, we got to talk about our trip this weekend, too. Hunter Bowen has his bold prediction. He says Jacob Jenkins-Cowart has 2 home runs this week in the conference tournament. I don't even know if that's bold at this point with the way he's hitting the ball.
It's just a regular
first game.
Yeah, just a standard-ass prediction, Hunter. Josh says, come to the Purple Tent by Gate 8, get some barbecue and beer. Why not, man? I'll see you there in 2 weeks. Kurt Cohn says he will have some Yingling. Does Cliff cuss out the rest of the AAC head coaches at the coaches meeting in Clearwater to complain about how bad the conference is? I don't think that would be the best way to go about it.
Do it.
But
I probably won't be back the next year anyway. So
that's true. I feel like Billy Mole has had to have coached his last game in a USF uniform.
I also feel like we said that like 3 years in a row.
We've said it for a while now.
Yeah, he's got to go. I think the biggest thing about in this Jose Cruz Jr. is he done as a Rice out.
It's Berkman's time now.
I can tell you what, guys. I sat beside the Rice dugout while I was captured, and there is not a more unmotivating coach to listen to than Jose Cruz Jr. So that's honestly why I almost fell asleep, because I was like, "This is seriously this is it."
Are you talking about 1997
Mariners legend.
AL Rookie of the Year runner-up Jose Cruz Jr.?
I am talking about that man.
At one point, he was. It was right after the dust up at first when Nowak tried to bunt for a hit when it was 10-2, and on the broadcast they were like, he's from the majors. That's how they would do it there. He's probably just fired up for his team, and then they pan to him in the dugout, and he's leaned back in a chair with his feet up, and I was like, he has no motivation right now. I think he knows what needs to be done with that program, and it's not going to happen in year one.
Yeah, no fire, and I was just kind of dejected being there, which is why I look so bored. Like the Rice dugout infused into my body and took over my self. I was pretty bored. All right, how many more years does the conference tournament in Clearwater? Too many. That's all I know. For us, at least, for the teams, I know they like it. Randall Smith says, can you comment on the Mike, the annoying guy with bullhorn situation on the Friday night game? He is way too much and calls their own. I have no idea what this is referencing. Do y'all know?
I thought I heard something about that. I don't know anything about it, but I think they're talking about Mike. I think he used to wrestle at ECU.
Y'all talking about so there was okay, now it makes sense, because there were a bunch of cops over there above the
third base side?
The third base dugout.
Yeah.
It looked like there was some issues. Somebody was getting either separated or ejected. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're so far away in the press box. I was not in the stands at that time. All I know is that we were all looking over there, and then I saw some of the players looking back from the dugout during the between innings. They were trying to figure out what was going on.
That's where I saw from. I think Cam Clonch was looking above the top of the dugout.
Yeah. Well, Cam knows he ain't going to play at that point, so he's more interested in what's happening over there. But no, that was there was something going on there, and a bunch of cops. Who knows? All right. Let's get into our bowl predictions. JPN 1212 says Colby Wallace has 2 appearances this week with at least 4 innings and 0 earned runs. I like it. Do y'all want to go bowl predictions and then conference tournament predictions, or do y'all want to go vice versa?
Up to you. You're the host. I'm down either way.
Let's go bowl predictions first. All right, who's ready?
I got it.
I need to think, so we'll let Scott go.
So Ryan McChrystal, AAC tournament MVP.
I like that.
Okay.
Wags.
Well, the one I had in my head also involved Ryan McChrystal, but I'm still gonna do it because it also involves someone else. And the 2 catchers, Ryan McChrystal and Justin Wilcoxon, I think will combine for 4 home runs this week.
All by Ryan McChrystal on his way to MVP.
Damn, bro.
What Ryan McChrystal prediction you got?
I'm going to go the star man, Jacob Starlin. I feel like he always crushes the ball in the conference tournament. He is a Florida guy. He has got 7 home runs on the season. By the end of the weekend, he will have 10. He will hit 3 home runs in the conference tournament, and he will be named the conference tournament player of the week.
This is batting average now. How close is he to 400?
He is 295, so he needs to go.
Have to go 10 for 10.
That's a heck of a week.
He needs 18 for 18 in the conference tournament. He might be knocking on the door. All right, I'm going to go with that. Adam McMahon says JJC and Star hit the Tiki Hut. JC would have to go Oppo.
He's kind of been doing that, though. I mean, he had 1 or 2 this week that were Oppo.
All of them.
I think at least 2 of his homers this week would have hit the Tiki Hut.
His last 4 have been Oppo. So he's got it down. A lot of it depends on the way the wind's blowing there, because if it's blowing out, it's like a home run haven. So, all right.
Which game does it rain for?
Yeah.
All of them.
Let me look up a Clearwater weather report. Let's go around the horn. We'll start with Scott. What do you think conference tournament? And Also, give us a dark horse to watch outside of ECU to win this thing if you are picking the Pirates.
I'll go the Pirates sweep. They get 4-0. And then dark horse, give me Charlotte. I think that's a team that's played a lot of really good teams this year. And I don't think their record really shows how good they've played. And I think they have a lot of portal guys, and they've kind of banded together a little bit over the last few months. And they'll make a run on the opposite side of the bracket for an ECU Charlotte showdown in Clearwater, Florida.
By the way, guys, Clearwater, Florida, all sunshine currently this is according to Apple Weather, which is I would say unreliable, but no sign of rain at all.
That can't be good
for the entire week. So we'll see what happens.
There will be storms that pop up down there in Florida, like they always do.
I know, you're right.
But yeah, I'm also going to go. ECU does win the conference tournament. I think they win the first game, and yeah, I don't see them losing. And if they do, I think maybe they lose the. No, I'm not even going to talk myself into it. I think they're going to go undefeated through it. They're going to win. And dark horse, I mean, I was going to say Charlotte, but Scott took them. So instead, I'm going to say, I don't know. Wichita State was a team that they showed glimpses earlier in the year, and I still think they're better than how they played. So I think if they get that path, maybe if ECU does lose, or I'm not looking at the bracket off the top of my head, but I think they're on our side, aren't they? Wichita?
Wichita, yes.
Okay. So if ECU loses that first game maybe and Wichita has a clearer path, then I could see them being a team that kind of gets hot. But, yeah, I just don't think anybody else is going to get hot, to be honest.
All right, I'm going to go ECU. I was going to pick ECU revenge game, beats UTSA in the championship. But I guess they could go revenge game Tulane. I guess they could go revenge game Charlotte, depending on how that, how that ended. But I'm going to go ECU sweeps until Sunday and then loses in the conference tournament final against Charlotte. No. ECU is winning the conference tournament. Screw that. I was trying, guys. I was honestly trying to
I thought you were going FAU there.
I was going to go with the other team. I couldn't remember them. And then I was like, FAU has been complete dog crap the last few weeks. I think if ECU faces Tulane or UTSA in the final, they're going to be so motivated. Charlotte is the one team that worries me because I do think they're pretty good, and I don't know if the revenge factor would be there, but screw it, man. I'm going Pirates as well. And I don't like that all three of us picked them, which is another reason why I wanted to go somebody else, but I agree. If I had to pick a dark horse, I would go Charlotte. And, I mean, if you want to call UTSA a dark horse, sure. They still have the best, I think, top arms in the league outside of ECU. So, if they hit the ball and they save those guys at the right time, they're going to be a tough out as well. And I think that's it, guys. I think we are done. We do need to discuss, though, our trip to D.C. The three of us will be heading to Washington, D.C. Friday. So we need ECU to not be playing Friday. If so, we'll be following on the road. Saturday, the Nats and Mariners play at 4. So I think the first game of ECU is in that Saturday game. They would play at 9 a.m. or early. So that could work out pretty good. There you go. So we'll figure out something as far as what we should do. Should we do a live video from DC at some point?
In the White House.
In the White House.
What we should do is we're going to hack the Nationals Park. Bots, robots, robo, all that stuff. We're going to hack the Nationals Park big screen above right field seats, and we're going to project it onto that. So everyone in DC will be watching, including Jesse Winker, the Nats, Mariners, Reds legend.
Nats, Mariners, Reds legend, immaculate grid hero, Jesse Winker.
Is he going to kill us with a home run ball this year? I go.
We probably need to look into getting tickets.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Day of driving down there, last minute box seats. Somebody had diarrhea and couldn't go.
I'm really gonna text Mackenzie Gore. I think I'm gonna do it.
Or
I feel
that.
kind of rude doing it, but I've talked to him like 4 times, so like that's good enough, right? Hey man, give me some tickets.
5th time's a charm.
We'll give it a shot.
I mean, it's not going to be sold out, I wouldn't imagine. So
No, it's Mariners, it's Nationals. It is lane train day though, right?
That's Saturday.
That's
But
Saturday.
the Nets suck lately anyways, so they're not even playing well anymore.
I
So
think it's
yeah.
Military Appreciation Day, specifically the Navy.
Okay. Well, there you go. We'll figure it out, man. We'll do something because the problem is, I guess Sunday night we will do. I guess 9 o'clock works because I think in the past they have released the regional host at 8:30. So maybe we'll plan to hop on. Do y'all want to plan to do one that night?
Yeah,
At
works
9?
for me.
So we'll plan to go live stream for sure Sunday night, 9 o'clock after the regional host, and then we'll see on DC. Maybe Saturday. I'd tell you what, if the Pirates advance to the AAC championship, we'll have a brief live just to celebrate at some point. So
Bucks on the Potomac.
there you go.
live from the river.
Live from who knows. We're going to be somewhere having a good time. So appreciate everybody listening, all 650 viewers. And appreciate all the comments, questions. Excited the postseason's here. This is the best time of year for college baseball. We may also do at some point this week. I'll try and get Wags or Scott on Hoist the Colors, the radio show, to talk about the latest RPI situation. So stay tuned for that. But we will be back with you on Sunday night, 9 o'clock, to break down the host sites. Hopefully ECU's won and continue to look at the postseason picture. This has been the Hoist the Colors podcast. For Wags, for Scott, I'm Stephen Igo. We're out.